talk about planning in general. I mean, this is a great opportunity. We don't get this opportunity often to discuss what we do in our office. So this is definitely a great opportunity for us to really describe to you what we do and how that really works and how that really helps with guidance and decision-making within a city. So what we'll discuss initially is what is a plan? Why do we plan? And how are plans implemented? How do projects get built? Then we also had two exercises at the end. We're gonna have you guys propose a project that we'll review against the city's regulations and let you know what the decisions are around your project proposal. And then there's also an MLK Boulevard inspiration exercise for exercise number 2. So what is a plan? A plan's purpose is to provide a guidance for community decisions, and it sets forth a vision, goals, objectives, strategies, and actions, and also recommends policies and programs to address issues related to a particular community. As you see in my diagram, it considers stuff like how do you get around, where do you play, how we as a city respond to regional growth and trend, where the jobs are, what type of housing, which heritage buildings it indicates here, and then like what our natural areas should be and look like. It's really that comprehensive, and it can be that comprehensive. Not all plans are, but we have been trying to be as comprehensive as possible with all of our planning efforts. And then there's the types of plans. The citywide master plan is this big 30,000-foot perspective of the city and really tries to provide guidance around a vision and provides recommendations around policies and programs all through the different lenses of housing, economic development, transportation. That's what the big picture citywide master plan provides. Then there is these district plans that's kind of like a hybrid between our area and neighborhood plans and the master plan. It pulls down from the master plan, specific elements of the master plan that may be geographic to a specific district. And then also the area neighborhood plans really get into the nitty gritty and really defines, the area neighborhoods by block, by, as deep as granular as the block. So why do we plan? We plan to help establish a community-driven vision for the city and our various communities. But we have to plan based on a municipal land use law that requires every municipality to adopt a master plan. So there is we'd like to do this because obviously we want to move as a community with a vision, but then there's also the state regulations that make us do this. So what we have now is the Trenton's master plan, which is called Trenton 250, that provides guidance and that provides guidance to get us to 2042 with that vision. Like I said, it provides a community-driven vision. There's some guiding principles to help with that vision. Then there's goals to help align with those guiding principles. And then there's initiative and actions that help facilitate the goals. And like I said earlier, the master plan is also broken up into different elements. I also like to think of them as lenses that we're thinking of the city as a whole. There's the land use, which really indicates how we plan to utilize our land at every inch of it throughout the city. Then there's the housing element. What are our housing issues? What are our efforts and plans to overcome those issues? What kind of housing we want to have at the end of all of this? There's education, economic development, health, and environment, and so on. These are all the types of elements that are currently in our master plan. The master plan is also on our Trenton 250 website, trenton250.org. You can access all that information on the master plan. I'm sorry, am I hearing a question? Or are there any questions so far? Okay. So the master plan's vision right now is Trenton First, a premier economic and cultural center built on arts, industry, and education. This was a year-long effort back in 2014, and education was the dominant issue and problems, and everyone wanted to create a vision, or everyone wanted to include education as part of the vision during this effort. But definitely industry, indicating jobs and arts and our, in our creative community, and definitely the economic development that all of this is based on. The Trenton Master Plan also has 8 guiding principles. There is the foster social opportunity and the vibrant vibrant economy through education, establish a preeminent arts and cultural destination, build a safe city, advance good governance, promote civic unity and pride, cultivate a healthy city, reinforce high quality neighborhoods in a 24/7 downtown, capitalize on location and urban form to support a multimodal transportation network. After reading that, I know that's a mouthful. I like to understand. I mean, I like to hear from anybody who's willing to provide, if any of these guiding principles kind of like resonate with them, and how that any of these guiding principles, particularly how they relate with any of these guiding principles. I'll just open that up to the floor right now with that question. If anyone has any input or want to provide that.
Jeff, this is Bob Tessier. I know the group has talked a lot about build a safe city.
Yes.
And safety in the neighborhood in the evenings and on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been involvement from the police. So I think number 3 certainly resonates with this neighborhood plan.
Yep. That's been an issue that's been brought up quite a bit during our public engagement with the Choice neighborhood. Any others? No? Okay. So what does this planning effort, how does the planning effort gets supported? How is it structured? How all of these interworking efforts within city government get played out? And we kind of created a graphic that we hope you like, that kind of like portrays that interworking at city government, and how this how projects get approved by local government. Like I mentioned before, there's this big overarching community-driven vision. There's some guiding principles to help support that vision, and then there's goals also helping supporting the principles and the vision. And I also mentioned how there's different lenses that we actually create the goals from to help support the vision. And then there are these different tools, plans, and these different tools and plans and actions and initiatives that really are meant to really support the overall vision and the master plan specifically. But then we have these redevelopment area plans and land development ordinance. These are our regulatory documents. These are our laws. These are our ordinances that really make the vision of the master plan come to a reality. And primarily, the redevelopment area plans are specific redevelopment tools that help development happen in specific areas of the city. But then there's the land development ordinance, which is really the zoning ordinance that really goes to every nook and cranny of the city and really determines what should be built there, how it should be built, and gives specific regulatory requirements that are designed just to make sure that the city is implementing its vision. Then there is the planning and zoning boards. We call them the toll booths on a bridge. They indicate if you're going to cross the bridge or not. They're approving these projects. There's the residential type projects, there's industrial projects, and there's commercial projects. So they pretty much are the guide. I mean, the arbitrators of who gets to cross that bridge or not. But this is really indicating how all these different components really help to, or are supposed to really help implement the vision And obviously, you know, with the redevelopment area plans and the land development ordinance, those are regulatory documents. This is where city council actually helps support this vision as well. They are the ones that adopt these redevelopment area plans, and they are the ones that adopt the land development ordinance. And the land development ordinance is based on the master plan itself. And that's our final graphic on Trenton Makes Our Future. And so what is this process that developers go through when they come to the city with a proposal? It can be from anything from an office building to your neighbor wanting to, build a garage in their backyard, or, put an addition on their house. This is the process that an applicant would go through. They would submit an application. The application gets reviewed by planning staff and the zoning officer. We come up with a report that indicates how this project complies or does not comply with the master plan, with the zoning ordinance, or redevelopment area plans, if it falls within a redevelopment area plan. That report is submitted to the board for a hearing on that application. The board has all this documentation in front of them. They hear the applicant testifies, and the board renders a decision on either approving or denying an application. If the application is approved, it moves forward with, applying for permits from the city to actually construct its project. Once the project is completed and the construction is approved, there's an inspection. Once the construction is, it shouldn't say approved for construction. Yeah, that should be a different language, but there's construction. And then after the construction is completed, our inspections department goes out and inspects the actual new construction. And then once the inspection is approved, they're signed off for a certificate of occupancy. Any questions so far? No questions.
Jeffrey.
Yes.
Oh. Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask you, when we're developing these plans and making the proposals, do you plan to come before the council body to bring them up to date so that you can at least get a core of support when it's needed?
Yeah, we do. And, obviously we have to come before the council when it comes to redevelopment area plans. But as we go at what we have done with all of our planning efforts is once it goes through planning board, once it goes through planning board, we come to council to get a council to what's the word we look for? It's almost, and I forget the word that we use, but it's almost like agreeing with or approving the plan as well.
Endorsement.
So what I'm saying is before the actual plan, you actually come to us to vote on the actual plan, would you be willing to give updates on the council people so they can ask all the questions at that point instead of waiting until you need to get that approved?
Yeah, we've done that too. We've come before you on, I think the TOD plan that we just approved a year ago.
Right.
You first to give you a heads up on the planning effort, and then we came back to you once we during that first presentation to you, we provided you the process that the planning effort would take, and then we came back to you once the plan was adopted by planning board for an acknowledgement.
Right, for the TOD, right, this is Bob Tessier. Marge, yeah, we came before the governing body and just gave a draft plan, took public comments, and then made changes, some of those changes based on council comments prior to bringing it to you for final adoption.
Yeah, because when you just come for the final adoption, that's when you may run into a problem where somebody may want to table it and then it delays the plan. So it's always good to be there ahead of time and give them heads up. Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought this up because we have quite a few redevelopment area plans that are going to be updated now based on the master plan. Now that we have a new master plan, all these regulatory documents need to be updated to help support that. So we will be meeting with all of you council members, and probably in 2s and 3s, to really talk through what that process means, what's your role in that process, so that when we do come before the council, you understand, exactly why we're in front of you.
Well, the reason I said that is because we do have a council person who insists that the public hear everything.
Yeah.
So, it's good to meet with 3 of us at one time and maybe 3 of us at another time or whatever.
Yeah.
But at one point before the final adoption, you might want to make a public presentation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
A lot of work.
Yep. Yep.
For our the redevelopment projects that we currently are slated to do, we have that built into the project timeline already. Both presentations in the midpoint 2 directly to council, and presentations in groups of 2s and 3s to individual council members. That's already built into the timeline. It's built into our grant applications for those things. It's part of the process.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Well, my question really had to do with the master plan.
Yes.
I understand, but I'd be very curious to see what that master plan is, and maybe it would head off a lot of problems if people understood what was in the master plan, and then as they look forward to developing things, they already know what the elements of the master plan is. And I'd also ask, at what point does the public have input, the residents in particular, have input on that master plan? Because there seems to be a tradition here in Trenton that City Hall thinks of these plans and then shows it to the public later, in many cases, too late for the public to have their input on it and improve the plan, actually embellish the plan and bring up fresh ideas. But it has to the public has to have an opportunity to look in on this plan.
Yeah.
This is Marge. Jeffrey, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe there were public meetings and hearings on that.
Yes. Yeah, it was a 5-year-long effort during the master planning effort. And we had quite a bit of public engagement during that process. But even going forward, as we go through these different types of area plans and neighborhood plans, that's where also the public, because like I mentioned before, this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of each one of these areas and neighborhoods. And that's where the public, we engage the public again around the planning effort. And that actually helps inform the master plan again, to refine the master plan based on the neighborhood plans. And actually, I'm glad you brought this up, because the next slide is really about public engagement and going forward. And I'm going to hand it over to Michael. But is there any other questions before we do that? Okay, so I'll hand it over to Michael, and he's going to talk specifically about community engagement.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Yeah, this is a really important issue, community engagement. And I want to talk about what community engagement is, how we do it, what it means to the community. But we do not do planning at all, ever, without community engagement. And a lot of the reason for that is because that's the way planning used to be done for a long, long time. And what happened over the course of time is that we found that planners aren't the experts in everything, and more mistakes were made than actual solutions. And there was actually a horrible history in planning, especially of redevelopment, in the history of renewal planning, a process called urban renewal that they had back in the day, where really horrible decisions were made that disenfranchised communities. And we as a profession have tried to learn at least, to not repeat those mistakes and to move forward always with the engagement of the community to move forward. So when we do planning, we try to make that a conversation between technical experts and community experts. And when we say community experts, we mean everybody here, all of you. You are the experts in your community. So I've spent the majority of my adult life studying the way cities work, how different cities operate, best practices all over the world. And I do mean all over the world. A lot of my work in the past has been international. So this is my passion. This is what I do. But I'm not the expert in every block, in every street, in every neighborhood in Trenton. So you have all kinds of knowledge and history about your block, who the people are, what the history of different projects are, how the neighborhood has evolved over time, what works in your neighborhood, what problems there are in your neighborhood. There is no amount of education and studying that can replace the knowledge that you have. And we depend on that as part of the planning process. We also depend on you to state your community preferences on different projects. So a lot of time in planning, we have several different directions we go. We can go on a project or on a plan. And we need the community's input to make decisions on which of those directions we can go. In a lot of planning processes, and you're going to see, I'll talk about that later about some planning that we're going to be doing in a few weeks. You'll be presented with things called alternatives, where we'll present 3 or 4 different choices about what, different options for plans. And we'll really rely on the community to give us feedback about different elements of the plans, what you like and what you don't like about each of these alternatives. So you can really set the direction for where we go. There's usually not just one way to go in a planning process. There's usually different choices that we have to make. It's also important to have community buy-in in order to facilitate the implementation of a plan. If we're proposing a plan for a project and the community doesn't want it and fights it all the way, it's very hard later on to implement that plan because it's always going to be a fight and it's always going to be causing problems. There are times when a project can be necessary, even though the community doesn't want that. Sometimes, there are projects that no community wants. Nobody wants the waste treatment facility, a landfill in their community, but sometimes it has to go somewhere. So there are times when you kind of have to make decisions, but even then you still want to get as much community input as possible into those projects to mitigate any problems that you may have with those things. If you just put those things anywhere you want without community input, you're going to have extra problems that you want to avoid. You also want to build towards what we call collective impact. So what collective impact means, it's an idea that you want all of the different organizations and groups in the community to be working together towards a common goal. So if I have a plan and I'm the only one working on that plan and trying to implement that plan, maybe we'll get a little bit done. But if we have a plan that's put in place and all the institutions in the community are working towards the same goal and trying to implement that same goal, all of a sudden everybody's working together towards a common cause and you get much, much bigger effects together. So you really want to work towards a common goal for the community. And most importantly, in the planning process, we've really, over the past few years, been building and refining on our idea of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And these are now core concepts for urban planners that are really drowned into us as really a necessary part of every planning process. And I want to talk about those ideas for a little bit. So diversity is really about representation. So, and it's accounting for all the different ways that we're diverse in our communities. So it can be about race, it can be about gender, it can be about age, it can also be about things like socioeconomic status, education. You want diversity of thoughts, you want diversity of ideas, you want diversity of values. You want everybody's different role in the community accounted for as part of your planning process. Inclusion is about ensuring all those different voices are heard and welcomed into the process. So you can have a group that has everybody in the community represented. And if their voices aren't welcome in the conversation, if they're not allowed to speak, if they feel uncomfortable sharing their points of view, that process isn't going to go anywhere. It's not an inclusive process. You want everybody's voices to be heard. Finally, equity is about fair treatment. It's about making sure that there are opportunities for advancement for everybody. It's about increasing fairness in procedures and systems, and also in the distribution of resources. And it's also about understanding root causes and disparities in communities. So there's a very, very famous graphic on the right that shows you why we talk about equity and not equality. So equality is usually about everybody getting the same thing and making sure that resources are distributed equally. Equity is about making sure that everybody gets what they need in order to thrive. So you see on the image on the right, you see that you want to make sure that everybody can see over the fence, and you're giving everybody the opportunity to do what you have to do to see over the fence. And we try to incorporate these things into our planning processes. So for a long, long time, when we sought community engagement in the planning process, you do a plan and you put a plan out there and you hold a meeting and a few people can go to the meeting. And that's your community engagement. That's not how we try to do planning anymore. Planning is about making sure that everybody has an opportunity to get involved. So when we do planning process, I've done tabling at farmers markets. I've done tabling on the beach when I was working for DEP. I've done tabling at public events. You guys have seen me down at Donnelly Homes. I think that the engagement that we've tried to do at Donnelly is really emblematic of what a planning process should be, where we're really trying to get surveys for different residents. Almost everybody here has participated in the Donnelly Home survey. We've tried to have meetings in the evenings and into the daytime so we can accommodate different residents. We've had, fun community fairs where we've tried to get information from residents. This is what the planning process is now. It's not about a few people showing up to a meeting once and saying we like or don't like the plan. It's about, this process that we've had here is really what it's all about, where we're starting from the ground up about your preferences, your needs, your vision for the community, and then try to build a plan. So you can go to the next page. I wanted to share with you that we've talked, you guys have been part of the choice planning grant process, but there are always other opportunities coming for community engagement on lots of different issues in Trenton. And there's 3 that I want to highlight right now that are coming up. So tomorrow night at our planning board meeting, 6 p.m., we're having a community conversation on cannabis. So talking about the new marijuana laws in the state, how they affect the city, and how the city wants to respond to them, and the implications for zoning, for planning, for regulations in the city, and really trying to understand how the community sees these issues. And we very much want all of your voices heard at that session. At our planning board meeting on April 22nd, we're going to be talking about transportation projects in the city. So we're going to be talking about transit center intersection safety improvements. So that's all the intersections around the transit center. We're doing a project to improve them. And this is where I was talking about alternatives. So we've had a DOT, Department of Transportation contractor working on these planning projects and coming up with ideas for these projects. And they've actually come up with 3 different alternatives that they've looked at as far as solutions to some of our intersection safety issues around the transit center. And they're going to be presenting that to the community and wanting to get community feedback on which of those alternatives is best for the community. So we're going to be talking about that on April 22nd. The last one I wanted to mention is for the Mercer County has kicked off its efforts on their hazard mitigation plan. This is about planning efforts to address all kinds of hazards in the area, in the county. So flooding, disease outbreaks, earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, all the different natural hazards, and also non-natural hazards. It does address terrorism and those types of issues as part of the hazard mitigation process. So efforts for that have just kicked off, and there is a stakeholder survey that we're trying to get as many residents as possible filling out that survey to give input into the process. And this is going to be the first of many other opportunities that there are going to be for engagement in the process. And the city will be sharing those opportunities over time.
Yeah, really quickly, Christy, are you able to share this survey link with the attendees this evening? I know that we provided in the presentation, but they might want a live link.
Yeah, Christy, I can email that to you afterwards.
Okay. can try to put it in the chat also.
Yep, absolutely.
Put it in the chat for everyone. Try it, Michael, and see what happens. Well,
Yep, I can put it in the chat.
it's forwarded accurately as well.
Okay.
So I do want to mention that there's a lot of resources that we use to reach out to people. We have a Trenton 250 Facebook page, and we also have a Trenton Master Plan Facebook page. We have a Trenton 250 website that I update as often as I can. I'll actually be doing a big update on Friday for the Trenton 250 website. And we also have the city's website, which is where we post all of our agendas for planning and zoning board meetings. And if there's any other ways that we can share information with residents, we're always looking for additional ways to share information. A lot of the time for Choice, we share information directly through Christy, because we know that she can get it out to everybody. But I wanted to ask you guys, if you guys have any thoughts or questions about this community participation process that I've been talking about.
Michael, are you going to be going out for community participation on the new land use ordinance?
Yes, there's going to be
mention
extensive
that, right?
community participation. There's going to be extensive community participation coming up for that. We actually have several organizations contracted to help us with that participation. We don't want this is not going to be just a one-off meeting. We want lots of community engagement for it. So we're hoping to release our draft of the new land development ordinance in the next 2-3 months or so, and we'll be sharing that across the community and trying to get lots of different opportunities for community involvement in that process.
And that'll be called the LDO, right?
Yes, this is what we call our land development ordinance. We call it LDO for short. It's also, a lot of people call it our zoning ordinance, our zoning laws. It's all the same. That's all the same thing.
And that'll set up what's allowed, permitted uses around Donnelly homes and in that whole neighborhood.
Yep.
Right? What's allowed to be there, what's prohibited.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
So, thank you.
Michael,
I did have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Jeffrey, go on.
Oh, no, I just wanted to know if you need me to stop sharing.
Yeah. So,
All right.
Mr. Ward, you have a question?
Yeah, you made a very good point about genuine community input, because over the years, what's happened is that the planning board would have a community meeting and they have 3-4 people there, and they present a plan without much background, and the people there wouldn't really have enough information to make an informed choice. And the city would say, oh yeah, we had our public input and we're going to do what we want to do. And what happens later is when the community at large really gets wind of what happened, other voices come forward with salient points, but it's already too late. And they said, we follow the process and this is what we're going to do. And there's nothing you can do short of a court challenge to stop it. And I can tell you of a project that's being built right now that most of the community, now that they see what's happening, are not very happy with it because we think the siting of it was terrible. And that's an experience we don't want to repeat. Another example is like you ride down Martin Luther King Boulevard, you see all the sycamore trees. Well, you know, the community groups and civic associations, after long years of finally getting all those trees removed from the boulevard, wanted to have potted ornamental trees so we wouldn't get them repeat the problem of the disrupted sidewalks and roots in the sewer pipes and the drain pipes. And when we finally, we asked for it, we was working with aisles trying to get specifically designed pots so we can put potted trees there. We came home one day and they were already planted. Those sycamores are planted. And that was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Every single sidewalk where they've been planted is now erupted and broken up. Exactly what we were trying to seek to avoid. and had been working towards, but the city simply ignored us and did what it wanted to do. And they're not going to come back and fix our sidewalks now after they've already ruined the project that the residents had been working on for a number of years. So there are real life issues with genuine appreciation of the community's input. You can't go through the motions of getting input and then do what you want to do anyway. That has to be, you have to take people's real input into account and adapt the plan, because at the end of the day, these are the people who have to live there and have to live with these decisions, and they should have the final say about exactly what goes into the neighborhoods where they may own property and are going to be living. And I like what you said about making this a genuine process. I have to say that the process that's going on in Donnelly Homes now is more fulsome than I've seen it before, but let's hope it's real. And that when that's not going through the motions, and the experts figure that they know better what should be in a community than the people who live there. So I hope that what you said is okay, is going to actually come to fruition, because we're determined not to rebuild the ghetto. We do not want to repeat the mistakes of the past. We do not want to crowd people on top of each other. We do want to lower the density so that the quality of life in these neighborhoods are much, much better. And we do have real ideas about how that can be accomplished. So the city has to be listening and not insert their priorities ahead those of the people who have to live there with the product. That was my comment.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any thoughts or questions before we move forward? Okay, hearing none, let's move forward with our exercise. Bia, if you could load up your screen.
Yes.
And Michael, I would just simply add that for those of you who may have joined a little late, we did share earlier in the presentation a link to this, which is similar to a tool that we've used previously, which was Jamboard. Some of you might be familiar with it, but this is a different tool where we wanted to use tonight because we needed a couple added features for these exercises. So for any of you who are daring enough, feel free to log in using the link that we shared. Also, Christy, I believe, may have shared it earlier or could follow up with it so that you can always log in later and add some of your comments as well. But no worries if you're not comfortable using the tool because it is a little complex. We can walk you through the basics, and everyone can join in and share their comments. So,
thank you so much. So if in the chat you'll see you guys will all see the link. I'll wait a minute. Let me for people to log in. In the meantime, Bia, do you want to zoom in on? I guess are we starting right into the two?
mm-hmm. Sure, we can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, Michael, you want to specify that it's the Miro link, not the most recent link that was in the chat.
Yeah.
Right.
Miro.com link.
Okay.
And actually what I think we should just do first is to point out just a few of the tools. So the main toolbar, for those of you who are trying to understand what in the world you're looking at here, down in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a little legend, which sort of tells you where we are on this large white board, okay? So as you can see, yep, down there, and you can increase, you can zoom in and out using your mouse, or by clicking on these different, the minus sign or the plus sign, right? Just like Bea is showing you. And then on the left over here are a series of tools, and just the basics are the ones that we're focusing on tonight. You can click on the T to add text. you can click on this little Post-it sign below to click on a Post-it and type a note, and you can place that anywhere that you might like. You can draw an arrow using the arrow tool, and you can even copy and paste an image onto the board. If you are in Google and you want to share an image with us, feel free. All you have to do is do Control C and Control V. And if you're in the Miro board, there are all kinds of directions that we've shared with you, which Bea is showing to you right now, which is showing you how to use these basic tools. So those are also all included in here. But this is a little overwhelming and not meant to be, you know, confusing or frustrating in any way. So we'll walk you through the exercise so that everybody can participate.
Thank you, Stacy. That was helpful. So for our first exercise today, we want you guys to think in terms of it being your turn to be the developer for a parcel in the city of Trenton. And we've chosen a parcel that we think you'll all be familiar with. So this is, just to orient you guys, this is right at Battle Monument and the north side of Battle Monument, right where it intersects with Brunswick Avenue and MLK. So there's an open set of 4 parcels over there that we have highlighted. And so you've all walked through that area, and those are empty parcels right now that are owned by the city. So we do have a lot more flexibility in seeing how these things are developed over time. So we wanted to get your thoughts on this. Now, I'm not going to promise that this is, you know, what you write in today is going to be exactly how it gets developed over time. Can't promise that. But this is about an exercise about you looking at this from the point of view of a developer, thinking about what you'd like to be, what would you want to build in this area, what you think might get through council or get through our planning board or zoning board, what you think that might be a good thing to put in this area. And really, I want you to think about it in terms of from your point of view in the community as well, and what you'd like to see in this parcel. What we're going to do is have you guys talk about what you'd like to see there. And then later on, I'm going to show you, once you guys have your proposal, how we would look at this proposal in terms of our city regulations that we have right now.
Could you go over what's on the surrounding properties now?
Yep.
Because that gives you context, right?
Yep. So you can see in this area, the parcel that's whited out is actually right north of Battle Monument. So it's actually right next, above it, you see a church. And then there's a couple of businesses down Brunswick. And then most of the surrounding area is a lot of different residential types. You have some townhouses. You have some open space around the Battle Monument. The Battle Monument itself is a park. So you have lots of different options for what you can do with the space, whether there should be more housing or community asset or you know, some commercial property or something that's going to produce jobs. There's a lot of different options for what you can do with this space.
What's the parking for across the street?
I'm sorry, say it again.
What's that parking lot for across the street?
Church.
That's for the church.
Church parking lot?
Yes.
All right. And then behind it's another big parking lot deeper down the Martin Luther King.
Oh, that's the one I thought you were talking about.
No, the one right across the street, right across Martin Luther King.
Oh.
I think that's just another empty lot.
It's like a gravel pit.
Looks like parking in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The city doesn't own that though, right?
Not sure, but we're focused on these properties.
Right, I just mean what's across the street.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, but
they're right there.
I mean, it didn't take any time for those houses to fall apart. I mean, the outside of it, it's terrible. So I would say to not use that kind of material.
They went up quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. It's an eyesore up there. What something happened.
That's where
the clinic is, right?
Yeah,
Every day off.
you notice the houses, how they look?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've heard some other comments about the area, that there's some housing that's not looking too great. That there's Henry J. Austin is the clinic around the down below. So what are your thoughts in terms of what's needed in this area? What's missing?
My point is that they were just recently built and they look horrible.
Oh, the housing over there on Brunswick, not Brunswick, on Broad.
Yeah, that's on Broad.
Yep.
You need, I would think that in that spot there, like a community center, where the seniors and even children could go there and get computers in there and stuff like that, like a community center.
Yeah, because the clinic is there.
You got the clinic right across the street.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I know there is one there.
I'd like to make a suggestion.
Go ahead.
The Battle Monument is famous because the Battle Monument. This is where Washington placed his cannons to fight the Battle of Trenton. So that's probably one of the most historic places in the city of Trenton, and that's why that monument is there in the first instance. So we should take advantage of that fact, because people do come there as historic visitors to come to that park for that reason. So let's take advantage of that location and its historic value, and have a visitor center or a commercial area where visitors can come learn more about the Battle of Trenton, perhaps have some coffee and buy a souvenir, and use the space to actually highlight the importance of that very, very spot. There's a lot of opportunities for community centers, and we're talking about Junior One as one that people can go to, but this is a unique place, probably in all of the country, because this is the actual turning point where the Americans began to win the revolution. So let's take advantage of that very sacred location, highlight that, and perhaps put something that would generate income, like a visitor center or a commercial area where visitors can come, relax, hear about the Battle of Trenton, buy souvenirs about Trenton, visit the Battle Monument, and move on to other historic areas. But let's not put something there that really isn't in keeping with the value of that particular property.
I like to just say, Mr. Ward, that's a brilliant idea.
Yes, that is a
I think everybody in the room is like shaking their head, like agreeing that that's a brilliant idea.
I got to tell you, I love it too. I mean, similar to what they did in Atlanta around MLK's church, Ebenezer Baptist, and how they really capitalized on history and tourism and the like. I think it'd be a fantastic idea to honor that area.
So what types of things would you want to put?
Michael, I believe, this is Marge.
Yes.
I believe that the Salvation Army are the designated developer for one of those lots by the Henry J. Austin Center. They want to build a youth learning center there.
Yeah, that's the lot to the east of this image. On the same side as the Henry J. Austin lot. Which
I think is a good idea, having a youth learning center in a historic area too, because our children don't get enough education on the history of the city of Trenton.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Have it as a museum and a starting point to take people around to other sites, and we could be making money for the city on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the area is bigger than just even this lot. I mean, it's almost like a national monument. You know, it's
it is. There's opportunities to really play up that particular area because this is the point where all of Washington's armies met. They placed its cannons on the spot of the monument and fired on the old barracks. So that is ground zero for when the Americans start to win. And there's nothing there to commemorate that other than the plaques on the monument itself. Yeah. So we should build upon that.
The monument is being restored right now, so that's a good thing too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I assume, and from what the pictures I saw in the past, that this area would also capitalize on the monument in the past. That's how they utilized this area as an area that just probably saw a lot of people coming to visit and just, had all kinds of conveniences for those visitors to spend money.
Well, as one who grew up in this area, on that corner was a bar.
It was it was very seedy.
Across the street was a steakhouse and a shoe shine parlor, a cleaner, and a movie theater. So it was heavily used commercial. It was ground zero in this area, but it was also drug and prostitution location number one. So what we don't want to do is present that kind of attraction to that area. So when those buildings went down, we had the opportunity to upgrade. The housing on Brunswick Avenue has been restored. There's some very large buildings there right near the monument that would like to have a calming, no drama. Yeah, we don't need no more drama at the 5 Points. So that's my suggestion. And there's other parcels there that provide opportunities for development. But I think it would be a mistake to forego the opportunity to really generate some tourism dollars by using that area in a smart way.
We've talked about a few different ideas for use, but I want to throw a few other questions out there, because when you talk about a development, we're not just thinking about what you put there, but we're talking about physically what you want to build there. So, for example, how big a building would you want to put there? Would you want to see a 1-story building, or would you want to see a big 5-story building as a monument or as a center in this area? Would you want to take up the whole lot, or would you want to use only a piece of that lot and leave a lot more green space?
I could see 2 stories.
I can't see another skyscraper 5 stories. That just would dominate the area.
How high are the existing buildings around it? Are 2.5 stories, right?
Yep.
I want to ask a question, Michael. Like, if we looking at it as a developer, if you're asking us to look at it as a developer and how a developer looks at it, wouldn't they look at the zoning for it, the setbacks, the surrounding neighborhood, the parking requirements? So you kind of like give we don't have any information to make a really informed decision about what would be there, what we would want there, because we don't have the parameters, to determine what's capable.
They certainly wouldn't be talking about park.
That's an excellent point. And I do want to say, though, that you have your set of regulations of what you can do. You have your planning, your zoning rules, and you have your redevelopment plans. And then sometimes the developer will come in and say, well, we want to do something different. And they'll ask for something what's called a variance. So they'll say, we want to do something different, and we'd like to get permission to do that. And they'll ask that variance at either a planning board or a zoning board meeting, and try and get that permission. And then it's up to the planning board or the zoning board to decide whether or not to give that variance. And there's big things that they do look at when they make those determinations for a variance. The first of all is whether the change offers some sort of concrete benefit for the community. And there's a list of different things that could be. Or it could be, and they also take a look at whether that change, that difference, that variance is going to cause any problems for the community. There's a reason that we have zoning. So they look at, all the different negative, what we call negative criteria. Is it going to cause too dense an area? Is it going to cause too many difficulties with traffic? Is it going to cause, things to be, too many people walking through the neighborhood or too few people walking through the neighborhood? Is it going to make the neighborhood ugly? Is it going to cause pollution or noise in a residential neighborhood? So they look at all these things. If you go to a zoning board meeting, including for the city of Trenton, what you will find is that the majority of cases that go before our zoning board for a variance are declined. There are more cases that are declined than are accepted. And the reason for that is that the zoning is supposed to be what guides development in the area. So it is supposed to be hard to get a variance. You have to really show that what your project is going to do is going to be a benefit to the community and not cause any additional problems in order to get a variance. So it's hard to get that variance.
So I think, so this is Marge.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that this group, when you're having your community meetings, is to help people understand the importance of the zoning and the planning board, and to be able to get them to turn out. If they're pro or against a certain variance, they need to know about it so they can have their voices heard at those meetings.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Typically, the only people that are noticed are people that within 200 feet. Everything else is a newspaper notice.
Well, yeah, but that's all part of our educating the community that's going to be involved in this.
Yes.
That's community outreach. Yeah. I have to leave for 5 minutes. I'll be right back.
Yep, absolutely.
Michael, did Marge say something about there's a developer now looking at the property, the relocation of Goodwill, or?
That's a neighboring parcel. That's not this parcel.
That's not on this parcel.
No, it's not this parcel.
And the municipality owns this whole parcel.
Yes, it does.
Right.
Yeah, we decided we weren't going to go looking for what we should build on somebody else's property. But so we talked about size. It sounded like the community wants a visitor center with some commercial opportunities. It sounds like the community wants something that's kind of the same height as the surrounding buildings in the area, maybe like 2.5 stories. Is that right? Is that the consensus that I'm hearing from people? I want to make sure I'm hearing from everybody in the room at Donnelly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you provide a list of options? I mean, to give us some kind of idea of.
Just to get you to think a little more creatively outside the box, would it be, wouldn't it depend on what's you want in your community as a use? Like if you had a tech company with 5 stories and it was bringing, certain jobs to the neighborhood, I don't think you would say we just want a 2-story building. Right. It depends on, what is the use and, what are we proposing there to better the community? In accord with what we said are the principles, which was education, industry, and arts. I think it needs a bigger infusion on the industry side. Because that is what we face here, is that we don't have enough opportunity to direct, our residents to more opportunity. We do a job, we do training, and we do engagement, but then when it comes time to actually connect people up with the actual opportunities that are available, there's a lack of opportunity. So when you begin to look at, okay, how are we going to develop our community? Like I said, I don't think you necessarily, from the resident that live here point of view, one point of view is, all right, what's the building going to look like? Okay, the context of the building fits into the neighborhood. The other thing is, what type of uses do we want to establish here? What is the best, what is the highest and best use? I'm sure Michael can speak to that more, the highest and best use of the real estate. And one of the things just in this leadership that we need to think about is, if we talk about the redevelopment of Donnelly homes, we're talking about essentially the revitalization of Donnelly homes, which can include demolition, new construction. So when you start to begin to talk about demolition, and you have 340 families living here, then okay, what are the housing opportunities that are going to be provided in the neighborhood to make sure that the quality of life of those families is improved in the relocation process? Exactly. What are the schools? Are you still going to go to? Are your children still going to go to MLK or this school or that school? Those are all of the things that have to be thought about. Right. But definitely in terms of the housing piece, You know, you got to think as well about quality housing, because just being honest, if you have 240 families there, there's no way that you achieve a redevelopment program without having off-site, outside of Downey homes, housing options for people to go to, so that this can be redeveloped in the whole community.
Very well.
I think that that's a really outstanding point. And I think that that's also the reason that we do neighborhood planning and community planning. And we don't just do things one development at a time. So we try and put a plan for together for a neighborhood that looks at all these things across the neighborhood, so that you make sure in a neighborhood that you have places for employment, places for schools, places for commercial activities. You know, you want to make sure that you're allowing for restaurants and commercial activities and play activities. And you put all these things together as part of a planning process. And then you try and execute the planning process with individual developments. So you'll have developers coming in to do individual developments as part of a redevelopment planning process. And they'll do a parcel at a time. And let's be honest, they're in it to make money. They're into it to, you know, build, you know, something that's going to be effective for them. Sometimes you'll have the municipality stepping in and doing a community center or something like that, or a neighborhood asset. But the process works so that one development at a time, you're trying to execute the overall plan for a neighborhood. And that's why you do a redevelopment plan. I want to show you guys briefly, because you've thrown out some ideas about what you'd like to see.
Can I interrupt you for a second, Michael? I think the one important point on this parcel is all the kinds of uses the community talked about and everyone posted. Those are things that a private developer is not going to do. If the
That's
city
right.
sells it to a private developer, there's no return on investment for that. These are things that a nonprofit, a redevelopment agency, the state or the city, or some other public group with a mission other than profit would have to utilize. So you would have to solicit them and get a group of partners in here to do that.
That's true, but we've also talked about having some commercial opportunities over here. So this could be an opportunity for what we call a public-private partnership. In order to have private companies work with a public institution to try and put a project together that works for everybody.
Yeah, but tourism sales is not going to drive anything.
That's possible.
Square footage wise, I mean,
Yeah.
you could have some kind of.
One thing that's very important to note, though, is that for whatever you build there, whether it's the facility building it or a developer building it, it's got to go through the land development process. So we've actually had the city wanting to, in some cases, wanting to build something, and it doesn't. And it turns out that it didn't accord with what was on the property, and the city's had to go for a variance for a property development. So I want to show you briefly some of the places online where we find this information. So you can see this is all online. This is all these regulations that we're talking about. They're all available to you. So I want to show you where that is. So I'm going to share my screen now. Stacy, can you unshare so I can, or Bea, can you unshare so I can share? We'll come back to this.
All yours.
Thank you. So this is the city website, TrentonNJ.org. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to departments. We're going to find the Department of Housing and Economic Development, the Division of Planning, and this is the territory for Jeff and I. So we're looking at, a specific property. So the first thing I'm going to do if I'm reviewing this project is I'm going to go to what's over here on the left side. It's called Geographic Information Services. So this is a mapping product called GovPilot that we use. We use it for a lot of different things in the city, but we use it for mapping. And you guys can all go here. This is all publicly available for you. And you can see what the zoning is for an area. So you can put in an address over here, or in my case, I know where this property is, so I'm just going to zoom in on it. So here's the Battle Monument. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so I can see what's going on in this area. Maybe one more time. Are you guys all seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So we can see we're really talking about these 4 parcels over here. So what I'm really looking for more than anything else is 2 things. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the left-hand side and I'm going to click on my zoning map to see what the zoning is. And you can see when I scroll over this area, this brown area, this is mixed use zoning area. So that's what's called mixed use in our zoning plan, in our zoning ordinance. That's the first thing I'm going to check on. The second thing I'm going to check on, and this is very important, and this is the part that people forget about, is I'm going to check to see if it's in a redevelopment area. Sometimes it doesn't load properly. If you zoom out and zoom in a little bit, it'll load better. So I can see, because this is highlighted in blue, that this is part of a redevelopment planning area. And in fact, this is part of what's called the Canal Banks redevelopment plan. It's very important that you check that it's in a redevelopment planning area, because legally, all of the rules for a redevelopment plan supersede. They're more important than the zoning laws in the area. So if the redevelopment plan says one thing and the zoning plan says ordinance says something different, you go with the redevelopment plan. The redevelopment plan sets the rules. So since I know that this is in the Canal Banks redevelopment planning area, I'm going to go to the Canal Banks redevelopment plan. So that's in the same place, Division of Planning website. I'm going to scroll down on the left-hand side, and you can see we have redevelopment area plans right over here. So I can see all of my redevelopment plans for the area. And I'm going to go to Canal Banks. And this is the Canal Banks area redevelopment plan. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the bottom of the plan, or near the bottom of the plan, and I'm going to find my map. Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one, I think. Yeah. So this is the map in the redevelopment plan for the Canal Banks area. So you can see the zoning here looks a little bit different. We're always going to follow what's in the redevelopment plan. So in the redevelopment plan, it says that the zoning is what's called RC. So RC, I know, is residential commercial. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to scroll back up into the plan and I'm going to see what it says for RC. I happen to know about where it is. So up here in the land use section, it says residential commercial RC. The mixed use zoning classification shall apply for all new or rehabilitated housing in the district. So if you're building housing in the area, it's going to follow the mixed use zoning classification in the land development ordinance. Commercial development in this district shall be in accordance with the business B zoning classification, except that convenience stores over 2,000 gross square feet and grocery stores are a matter of right. So this is specifying specific rules for how you develop in the area. The reason you do this is part of a redevelopment plan is because you're looking now more narrowly at an area than what you did probably when you're doing your land development ordinance. And you're creating all kinds of specifications that are really tailored to the neighborhood. And that's what you're doing as part of a redevelopment plan, is really getting down to tailoring things to the neighborhood. So you'll see different strategies being utilized for different areas in order to try and get down to the neighborhood level.
Hey,
So,
Michael.
yes.
Yeah, so it's 6:46.
Yep.
If you want to wrap this up, and I'm not sure if we're going to have time for the second exercise, or if you want to ask if people are willing. You can explain the second exercise and then ask if people are willing to stick around to finish the second exercise.
Yep, that's a good point. So all I would say about this is that once I know what's in the redevelopment plan, the land development ordinance for the city is also on the same page of the city website. So my next step would be go to the land development ordinance and look up if I'm building a commercial building or if I'm building a residential building, what all the specifications are. And I'm going to follow the land development ordinance, keeping in mind what's in the redevelopment plan. So I'm going to stop sharing. And so we have a second exercise for you guys, looking a little bit broader at the community and Martin Luther King Boulevard. I think, Stacy, we have time for 10 minutes looking at that neighborhood, don't we?
We can we can certainly introduce the activity, and it's up to people if they're willing to stick around, and certainly, you know, this will still be accessible for people if they want to still give it a try afterwards as well. Yeah, absolutely. If you'd like to go ahead and introduce it, we can present it.
Map
Yeah, they talking about redeveloping the boulevard.
for this area. So for this exercise, we're not talking about redeveloping the boulevard. So what we're going to look at in this one is not for redevelopment of the parcels, but we're going to be looking at the streetscaping. So that's the part of this planning process that we're doing, is not just looking at the big buildings that typically built, but we want to look at the little things, the trees, the furniture, the plants, the signs, all those types of things. These things have an important part of what your community looks like. So what we want to do is take a look at Martin Luther King Boulevard in the area and talk about some of these little these streetscape improvements and where you'd like to see them and put them on Martin Luther King.
I was going to just say, or in general, how you would like to see Martin Luther King look like, and how do you see Martin Luther King Boulevard really living up to its name, and how, and what does that look like and feel like living up to the MLK name?
So we have some images here.
If I may, I am a resident of the Boulevard. I'm Algie the Great from 688 MLK. So all of the above. I think there's room. I think there's room on the Boulevard, all the way down to Olden Avenue, where all of the things that you proposed here could find a place.
Yeah.
The bus shelters and the benches, especially the recycle cans and the decorative street lights, would absolutely give it a distinctive quality. Decorative crosswalks will help with the property value, and the historic signage will remind people that they're in a very historic area. So I don't see anything. There might be a few things we'd like to add to that list right there. And all of those would be welcome as a resident.
And this is Marge, there's a perfect lot at the corner of the Boulevard and Kirkbride where you could have that sitting area, the public sitting area. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what we'd like to do with this exercise is actually look at where we'd like to place a few of these things.
Right.
So you can see for each of these things, like the benches are blue. The bus shelters are green. So there's different tags you see on the right side, little circles that you can move in the mirror board. So what we'd like to do is place a few of these things where we think they belong on the Boulevard. You know, you don't want a bus shelter everywhere on the Boulevard. You want it in a few key places where the bus stops, where there's important bus stops. So the idea is, as part of this, to take a look at where some of these things currently are. So you can see over here where some of these things currently are. And then we can add in, you know, where you want to place certain items. And yes, we can add, if there's other things that you want along the Boulevard, we can add those things. So I'm going to propose that we work on this as a group for maybe about 5 minutes more. So we can talk about where we'd like to place different things along the Boulevard. But then this is going to be going longer. And if you want to work on this on your own time, or even work with us, you can give me a call at the city and I'll work through, and I'll find some time to work with you to place a few items on the Boulevard. So this mirror board is going to stay up for you guys to place different items in the community to show us where, and this will be part of our planning process, looking at where different items should be on the Boulevard.
So that's the key thing: what, where, how to prioritize them, and what it costs. Then you have a plan for improvement of that Boulevard. And everyone has an agreement on, here's where benches go, here's where gathering spaces go, here's the kind of lights you want, here's how many.
And I think also you have these sticky notes on the right, because if you want to describe like how you want it to look and feel, if you want a distinct look on MLK so people know when you are in this neighborhood and showing the pride you have in this neighborhood, that's the kind of distinction you want to make on MLK so people feel it when they come down MLK. That's the kind of things you might want to, write down a feeling that you want to convey.
Thanks for that, Jeff, because I was about to say, I noticed that the lighting was kind of ornamental and kind of traditional, but the bus stop was kind of modern. You probably want to keep the same theme, whatever it's one you choose throughout the area for just the reasons that you stated. You wanted a distinct feel, you wanted to harmonize, you wanted to match, you wanted to show some artistic value. And that's what was missing from the list of things you offered. We need a place for public art as well, in order to give that feeling of a distinct area. Because Martin Luther King Boulevard, believe it or not, is a gateway into the city. And the impression that the visitor sees coming down the boulevard is often the impression they have of Trenton. So if anything, it's like cleaning up the living room. You got to make sure that when somebody comes over, at least the living room looks good, So, so you want to make sure your gateway is attractive. So yeah, the theme or the artistic values, the aesthetic values, is something. I don't know if this tool can allow you to do that, or just make the suggestion verbally. I don't know how that would work.
Yes, you can absolutely do that in the tool. So you can in the tool you can use a yellow sticky, and you can write down anything that you want to say about the neighborhood in a sticky. You can put it off to the side if it's in general about the neighborhood, or you can put the sticky down on the map if there's a specific thing that you want to call out.
So I'm actually capturing these. So here, I'll move it over so that you can see it. So I'm trying to capture for anybody who would like us to make sure that one of these comments is captured. Feel free to just shout it out and we can write up a post-it for you right here.
So I'd love to hear from a few of the residents in the room about things that you'd like to put in particular locations. Christy, if you could repeat what they're saying, it's a little bit hard to hear in the room.
Can you bring up the slide that has presentation of the items that can be implemented throughout the city?
Sure.
Yeah.
I figured they could hear it.
Yeah, Stacy, if you could scroll back up to the list of to the pictures.
Sure, actually. Bea, do you mind scrolling over to the images? Yep. Thank you. I'm writing and Bea is traveling.
I hear you. And these are examples, but there are other things that you can put in. I mean, if you have an area that you think needs something as simple as a stop sign or a speed sign, we can put these types of things into the map. These are all valid items. So,
or a mural or art.
I want a waterfall.
You want a waterfall.
A water feature. That's legitimate.
It's absolutely legitimate. I will say that they are very expensive and very difficult to maintain, but they are also really beautiful when you can pull them off well.
Well, we do have a canal. I mean, we can do something near the canal that emphasizes the water. I mean, it's there. The plaza sitting area, there is an area where Martin Luther King intersects with Calhoun. That plaza sitting area looks like it was tailor-made for that spot, but there's one drawback. On that next corner is a liquor store and bar. So what do you think is going to happen in that park?
I think they're going to take the liquor store and the bar out.
They're gonna come out of that bar and sit in that park and drink.
You have to activate that park with bringing other people in and having some maybe food truck and activity space, and you can't give in to the surrounding use. You have to somehow get that park to dominate the use.
Yeah. And things like
that's true.
Could you?
That's true. But
sorry, could you just repeat the location that you mentioned?
it's Calhoun.
Yep.
It's the intersection of where Calhoun meets Martin Luther King.
To the very top of the map that's there. It's, I think, just outside the border. It has a name, right? Is that a different, like 7 points or something like that?
People have called it a lot of things. I'm not sure of an official name, but it looks like heck right now, and it just needs to be improved. There is a sign there, and we did try to do some plantings, but it wasn't maintained. But and again, it gives a very bad impression from people coming in to the town, because the first thing they see is this hard scrabble area where it could be really attractive and welcoming if we take some care with it. And I take the point that we should look up and not let the for instance, that bar causes a problem. We could speak with the owner and let him know, but then again, he really can't control an area that's not his property, and people have a perfect right to sit in the park. So you know.
But if you put activities there, like a water, you know, those water parks for kids where the water shoots up from the pavement.
Well, it's not that big. It's not really.
They do that very small pieces.
Okay, yeah. I mean, anything.
I mean,
but also traffic there too.
There's a lot of traffic.
I'd be concerned. Yeah, I'd be afraid of mixing the kids with the traffic. But something passive, something attractive, you know, would work. Plaza is a great idea. You just have to invest some thought in making sure that it's maintained.
So Michael, this is Marge again.
Yep.
So in the past several years, I've had constant conversations with the grandmothers that take care of their grandchildren. And they always wanted a grandmother's park. I'm just putting it out there, because somewhere where they can have peace and quiet and some play areas for the children that they're taking care of.
I think that's a great idea.
Grandmother's park. Wow.
All right, so it is 7 o'clock, and I do know this session is supposed to end at 7 o'clock, and to be respectful for everyone's time. I guess the question is, do people still want to stick around a few more minutes and continue this conversation, or would you rather just, I believe this is going to be available for anyone to go and add information. How long is it going to be available, Stacy?
We can keep it up for the rest of the week if you'd like, or over the weekend. For sure. If people think that would like to explore it.
I would like
how
to
much
try.
How much more do you guys have to do? How much more do you have to do?
Well, it depends on if everyone feel like they've exhausted their input.
Okay.
If people feel like they still have some information they want to provide.
I'd like to do the exercise and put those places where I think that I would, you know, my personal idea about where they should go on the boulevard, but I'm not quite sure of how to place them on the map that you have. Do those pictures drag and drop onto the map? Is that how that works?
Yeah.
What you would do is all those dots correspond to those pictures. So if you scroll in, you can see the dots.
Oh, I see.
And
okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Yep, you drag and drop the dots.
Okay.
Okay.
How do you get rid of the dots that are already there if you want to remake it? What do the existing dots show, Michael?
I think
Those are ones that people have already placed. So folks who logged in early, like Chuck, I know Chuck Latini, who was involved, he placed a number of dots. So these are actually ones that folks who have been on the call or accessing the board today have already expressed their interest.
I see.
Yeah. So you could simply add to them or reiterate them, or you could certainly also add post-its.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say to
It's going to
everybody,
get very busy if a lot of people do it.
that's okay. It happens.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I think, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So what I would say to everybody also is that we're in the office every other day. I'm in the office all day tomorrow. And I actually have a miraculous day of no meetings tomorrow. So if anybody wants to call me during the day or email me during the day, I'm happy to sit with you and work you through the mapping exercise and help you go through this anytime tomorrow during the day.
What's your phone number?
My phone number at the city. Sure. My phone number at the city is 609-989-3503.
Can you repeat it?
609-989-3503. If you don't hear from me, if I'm away from my desk, you can also email me at mkolber@trentonnj.org. I'll be at the office till about 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to leave at 4:30 because I got to get home to set up for planning board meeting. We do a planning board tomorrow night, but I'll be around until 4:30 tomorrow afternoon if anybody wants to work through the mapping exercise.
And remember, that's the cannabis conversation tomorrow night if you want to join us.
Do they have a Zoom or?
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
If you go to the Division of Planning website, the page, you'll see a link for planning board. And then when you go to planning board, you'll see a link to join the meeting.
I will put that in the chat for the meeting as well.
Okay.
I'll be on.
Does anyone have any comments or any feedback? Do you think that using the Miro board was a useful tool to sort of see some images and think about these things, or do you think that was maybe too difficult of a tool?
Not enough time, I think, dear.
Not enough time?
I think that was pretty good. And for y'all to do something for the kids, I would like to see more stuff for the kids, because by the kids being inside, being on top of the roof here where I live at 3 Mellon Street, up and down, all over, busting up windows and everything else, and fights almost every day. Cops or just a bunch of traffic. Basically, it's like they have too many people. They just gather up people just so they can see people fight. And it's not right to have other kids come from other facilities or whatever, other apartment complexes to come over here just to damage our part. And I just like to see more happen over here in our area.
Great. Are you at Donnelly Homes?
I'm at 3 Mellon Street.
3 Mellon Street, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm at the Haverstack Homes.
Okay, great. And when you say that, what sorts of activities or things can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Like yesterday, they had a fight out here, okay, and they had like gazillion of cars just blocking up the street, blocking the bus drivers. The police can't get around here fast enough before they jump in their car and haul boogie. But then you got the kids that's coming over from Dolly Homes over here. They busting up windows, like the little slot that we have to see out the door is already busted. They lift it up, come in the door, and then they automatically junk up our hallways, but we get blamed for it, and it's not right. Like the guy said yesterday, it was one of the maintenance guys. He was like, it looked like New York up here. Like the whole hallway was junky. People peeing in the hallways, all types of stuff, smoking in the hallways. We got all brand new babies up in my building, and it's just crazy. And then when you go down the stairs, you gotta say, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, because it's like a gazillion of kids on the steps, running up and down, knocking on people's doors, stuff like that. But y'all don't see that. Over here off of Pennington, right next to the reservoir, the end of the reservoir, that's where the Haversack homes start. And right on, like I think it's called Oakland, is the other side of the projects. And that's front line. So shootings, people shooting all the time. There's one building back here off of Oakland Street where there's nothing but junkies in the little alleyway, whatever. And it's an abandoned house, but there's nothing but junkies living there. You know, you got kids walking past needles and all types of stuff like that.
What's your address again?
My address is 3 Mellon Street, apartment 2A.
Mill Street.
3 Mellon, MELLON. Yes, Cheyenne.
And are there public housing security guards that come by there?
What, every once in a blue moon, as soon as they leave, they burn the grass in the back, little patches of grass that we got back here, which is supposed to be where we're supposed to have our grill. They do all types of stuff like that. And then they send the fire trucks out here, they get it done, then they go right back doing the same crap.
So there's no
control over here, none.
No patrol units, no security guards.
Nope.
They only come when there's
they ride in their car and they haul boogie back to wherever they go. That's like, maybe you see them maybe every 4 or 5 hours. Nobody's watching the cameras. Y'all see people coming up in here all the time, but it's just like, okay, they're kids, they're gonna be kids. That's what I was told by the office. Like, there's nothing for them to do. So find something for them to do. Like, keep them occupied. You know, it's just crazy. Like when I first moved here 6 years ago, I was on 2 Eisenhower, apartment 3C, and I had to literally ask people, excuse me, can I walk upstairs because I'm pregnant and all that stuff, and I couldn't move. They just look at you like, okay, like, who are you? We don't even know you. We don't care. Like, got the kid downstairs, he peeing all out in the hallway, outside, and everything else. It's crazy.
Where's his parents?
The parents is in the house doing whatever they want to do or surfing the street.
That's why they don't be there.
It's not right, you know, like, we got to watch out for each other in this building, but nobody's watching out for nothing. And I don't really like to speak about anything in this building because then they want to talk about, oh, somebody's telling, or like they told me before, we was under investigation in our building and all this other stuff. That's why our doors was unlocked and everything. Everybody else's door was locked except ours. And I'm like, okay, why we being investigated? Why y'all keep sending me notes talking about, oh, the hallway, the hallway, the hallway? Get them kids somewhere to go so they won't have to be in the hallway messing up our hallway, and then we get blamed for it.
Right. Well, let me say this though to that. When you say you was getting notes, everybody was getting notes. It's a certain thing like that the housing authority can do, but again, it's community. It's a certain amount of policing itself. If somebody is violating, if you got nine doors in that hallway, if one door is violating and creating and killing the peace, then you have to speak up and let the office know who that is so that we can take the appropriate action to get out. Right. When we don't know, we send cease notice, like you're saying, to everybody and say, listen, we found trash in this hallway, please cease. And then after that, it's like you talked about security. We have basically 2 to 3 security guards on this shift, and they roam basically all of the property. So security is not gonna, if they go and they see they're gonna relay something, but security is not gonna lock that down. It has to be us working together to lock that down. You know what I mean? And you have to, I always look at it like, if you take control of your, your area in front of your area, in control, then basically that's you live there. So if the neighbor is, throwing trash out there, the first thing is to deal with the neighbor. Like, why you trashing up the hallway. And
you can do that all day, ma'am. You can do that all day, because me and the neighbor downstairs in the middle, she's been here longer than me, and she's been doing that almost every day, cleaning up the hallways, bleaching the hallways. These kids come up here and they'll just throw their trash like for Easter. We got a whole, the third floor on down is nothing but trash. The lady downstairs in the middle, she just cleaned up everything and they come right back and do the same thing. We last like,
So
we get bums and
so
coming
this
in.
is March. So maybe the housing authority needs to get a kids group together called the anti-trash group.
Yeah, something like
And
that.
start teaching the young children not to trash the neighborhood.
I didn't hear you. The room's upstairs in the hall.
Marge, we used to have that way back in the day. We used to have cleanup crew on the kids around the neighborhood. Well, I'm in Downey, so the kids in around the neighborhood, including me at the time, we would clean up on Saturdays. And housing would provide us with the garbage cans, you know, brooms, trash, whatever. So that is a good idea to bring in.
Yeah, I truly believe that if you teach children about not trashing up the neighborhood, not throwing trash, if they see their parents doing it, they're going to tell them.
Oh, it's just like right now. We got a bunch of people in my hallway right now. A bunch of fucking kids just doing what they want to do, smoking and everything. But hey, we can't say nothing to them because if you say something to them, they want to jump you and all this other stuff. Like the lady down the street, she's Jamaican or whatever. Like, although she's a drunk, she does it in her own home. But for them to beat that lady up the way they did, that was so wrong when I first got here. I thought that was so wrong. And they did it right in the corner of her house, and then they ran her upstairs and beat her in her own home. Like,
and it's the kids, the ones that beat you up.
Yeah, no, you can't, like, they'll run and tell their parents some old lie, but then the parents want to come and beat you up. Like, I'm not for that. So me and my kids, we stay in the house. We don't even go outside. We don't chit chat with none of these folks in this building. We can care less about anything that goes on in here because we in our own home. I pay rent. That's all I can do. I can't do nothing else. I don't mess with these people around here.
It's not fair to put it on you.
I don't know. That's just a sad commentary that a person feels helpless and trapped in their own home like that. I don't have the answer. All I can say is that, you know, people who of goodwill, when they band together, we're stronger than the people who want to do wrong. And all I can say to you is work with the people that's in your building to try to keep it up and isolate the people that's causing the problem. And if there's kids gathering in your hallway, you're talking to Mr. Jelani is sitting there, tell him, and he will have security stick their head in there and run them off.
They right here in my hallway right now.
There you go. Right.
Well, yeah, pick up the phone and call security.
You know what? Just like I said,
they don't know who called.
Sir, I called one of the securities, and you know what they said? There's nothing for the kids to do. They're going to run the hallways and around the streets and everything else. So there's nothing we can do, really. Like, okay,
well, don't take no for an answer. Don't take no for an answer. And if they don't respond, call Jelani. Jelani will get their attention, right? Won't you, Jelani?
Oh yes, sir.
If they don't get no response,
you need a full-time presence or part-time employees or additional security guards or additional funding to address that. Even if you hired these kids to make a community patrol, you know, I mean, you have to put money at that issue because you can't expect the residents to do it themselves when they're outnumbered.
And so also, in the meantime, you can also call the Trenton Police Department non-emergency number at 989-4000, and we'll send someone out there in order to clear off anybody that's in the building trespassing, sitting on the steps or whatever.
Well, y'all got that right.
I have a question for Jelani. Jelani, this is Marge. They have security gates at the entranceway of Donnelly Homes, but there's no security guards. There's nothing set up to be able to stop people and check them as they come in.
Yeah, we put.
Do you have plans to change that?
Monday, we're actually putting all cars coming in are going to have parking, basically tags. We're putting security gates. We're putting speed bumps. All of that is actually construction on that actually begins next week, and we will have a guard at the security.
You know, y'all need to put a speed. I would think y'all need to put a speed bump right there on Eisenhower because they come flying from the liquor store around the corner down Eisenhower like it's a highway.
Yeah, where you live at, we don't. I mean, we have the ability to do it here, because we have the fencing to isolate, to basically close it up. Wilson Homes and Harrison is just open. It's like it's people coming from, like you say, Roger Gardens.
All over.
So it's not, we like I said, on the trash, that's something that we spend, I can't even tell you, we have a whole crew. It does nothing but clean up trash every day. Now we've tossed around, just stop doing that. Because ultimately, when you think about it, yeah, we cleaning it up after they come in. But is that really addressing the issue? You know what I mean? Is that really, you can say the housing authority, but it's got to be the culture of the people that live here. If you allow somebody to, trash the hallway, or you walk by and you allow somebody to trash, you don't say nothing, don't say nothing to the young people. They'll tell you, I go out myself and talk with the young people out here and have many conversations. Like, bruh, you trashing it. Stop. Don't do that. We trying to do this. We trying to do that. But it takes more than one, and it's not necessarily the housing authority. You know what I mean? That's a community effort. That's men and women in the community having a certain mindset and taking control of their community. Now, like you said, I'm gonna go out here in security and say there's somebody in Mellon. Now they'll go over there, like you're saying, they'll clear it. But if there's
They come right back.
You can't put a man in every door. So if there's no control there and with that community, then they are going to be right back. So
what I was going to think is y'all could at least put some cameras up, one here, one there, whatever, so you can see what's going on. Like
we have that
camera.
So Jelani,
building, that's not going to help. I mean, you need to have something in our building, like from the second floor, that can see the first floor, all that good stuff.
Right.
So would it be possible if I could just say something? I know it's running late and I just had my 4 wisdom teeth pulled, but I hear this and I just wanted to add a comment. I'm a lifelong Trenton resident and I hear everything that is being said about what Leilani's saying about Eisenhower and all that, but unfortunately, you cannot put that weight on the Trenton Housing Authority because honestly, that's Trenton. You know what I mean? Not saying that it's all jacked up, but that's the culture of the predominantly most of all the people that live in the projects. So if you want to start somewhere, you can start with holding the parents accountable. You know what I mean? People from East is going to come to West. West is going to go to North. But the thing is, start with the doors. My brother lives on Mellon. Those doors are constantly unlocked. Whatever happened to holding your keys? If the parents are the only ones with the keys, these kids, it will limit some of that. And the cameras may help, but at the same time, if you see somebody who lives in apartment 3A, their son is in the next building and they're throwing trash, okay, well, it's time for that parent to get a notice in the mail stating your kid was witnessed doing this. We will add a fine onto your rent. Either it's going to force parents to either take accountability and responsibility, or it's going to force them to want to move out. And if we want to better the city and we want to renovate and make things better and captivate the culture, then we need to start really holding the residents of Trenton accountable for what they do, what their children do. It's not just up to the housing authority or the security officers, because honestly, if I was a security officer, I'm not coming around to Mellon at 11 o'clock at night when there's all this chaos and commotion going on, because I can get hurt. I'm not trying to be about that. And the police, they have enough going on in the city, but as a resident, I lived in Lincoln Homes, I'm now at Turner Point. I was getting a little bit tired of the culture myself. So therefore, everybody can't do what I did. However, sometimes you just got to elevate yourself and try to either, if you can't fix it, move away from it. Or if you can't move away from it, then you really have to stay there and take accountability and help where you are. If I don't care if somebody's talking about snitching, you don't want to get snitched on, well, guess what? Maybe we can have an anonymous line where the residents don't feel like it's going to be some type of retaliation or they have to know who told. But the residents, the people are the ones that's in charge. It's almost like when people say guns kill people. People with guns kill people. So we have to let the residents really take responsibility for their kids, for the actions of their kids, and for themselves. There's no smoking. There's no, maybe every year when you do recertifications, there's some way you can, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's illegal to drug test everybody, but there's just certain things, you know what I mean? Maybe you can get tighter on the restrictions and certain things that tenants are allowed to have in the buildings. You can't do this, you can't do that.
Well, Well, I'm a Dolly Home resident.
Oh.
And with that being said, and yes, that's actually true. You should hold parents accountable, but there's also accountability with your landlord. If they enforce different regulations, like we have no loitering, that should be enforced. It's on your property. You're saying this is a private whatever, it should be enforced. If cameras are catching people loitering, if people are reporting it, then it should be rules and regulations that the housing authority do to stipulate and to make sure. You can't always hold it on some of the residents, because we do know when residents have taken action, some of them retaliated against. That's a proven fact. And like the young lady was saying from Mellon Street about the lady being attacked. I mean, listen, my thing, it has to be a two-part thing from the residents and the landlords. They know the housing authority, when they recertify, have to make sure that the residents know policy and procedures. A lot of people tell me they move in here, they're not, some ain't giving a lease, some is not this or whatever. I don't know, I'm not there. I'm just going by what some of the residents say. So on both ends, we have to make sure that everything is coming to play so that we can make it a better place to live. Everybody can't up and move. Everybody don't have certain finances. Right now it's COVID, so everything is different. And some people are stuck where they live at. And you know, like I said, through financial, some people just can't up and move. I mean, that's the idea. That's good that you was able to move, but everybody can't. Especially when you have 4 or 5 kids, that's not easy to do. So you're stuck in a situation, but no, you should not be trapped in your home. You should not be forced to live in that situation. But we are working with the housing authority. So when stuff is reported, like I said, they should have suggestion boxes, stuff like that, that people can put in to let housing authority know that some stuff is going on, so that no one knows that they're telling or they're going to the housing authority. And I think suggestion box should be limited to a person from the housing authority, because of situations prior where residents have came and told housing authority, you know, and stuff got back out that they came and told. And then, you know, you have some, you know, employees that are out there with that. So at the end of the day, you know, it has to be, like I said, a 2-part where everybody's doing their part. It just can't fall on, oh, the resident. I get it. Some of these residents, their kids is out of control. Some of them need parenting skills. But at the end of the day, it's like I said, it's an environment which they grew up, where they live. Some people ain't taught. Some people was raised by the grandparents. Some people came up in a system. So, you know, it's like a whole generational thing that you have to deal with, in the mindset. So until that, we have to try to work with what we're working with. At the same time, I always take suggestion that mandatory letters go out stipulating that you're not tolerating the loitering, you're not tolerating the, you know, in buildings or whatever. If there's supposed to be locks on doors in certain areas, then it should be, or it should be checked. Or if a resident report that something's broken, it should be getting fixed. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody has to be accountable for all of this stuff that's going on. It's just not just a resident.
So Jelani, this is
May I?
Marge. Marge. So I'm going to keep this short, because I still believe that, and I don't know if you have one, but I think Donald Holmes needs to form a kids club and assign them to take care of certain things, with awards at the end of the week or end of the month for the kids that did the best, that did the most cleanup or whatever. Because I know when I moved into my community in the early 80s, we would try and put planters outside and flowers, and they'd be stolen. So we formed a kids club, and we got the kids to start making planters and pots for their families' homes. And all of the theft stopped with the planters because the kids got involved. And I think that that's really, really important, that we actually really get the kids actively involved on a regular basis. That's all I have to say.
Marge is right about that. Community involvement is key. But let me say this, because I can't let it sit with the idea that people that live in public housing have less aspirations than everyone else. I know many people who've grown up in projects and gone on to lead pristine lives. And I can take you in apartments right now that are crystal clean. You can eat off the floor. Well, somebody across the hall ain't swept the floor in 6 months. So I don't want the people who are negative to overshadow the people who are positive, because not everybody is like that. And I don't want that stereotype that if you live in Trenton, you're this way. I'm from Trenton and I ain't that way. And my son is sweeping up the floor right now because I don't like stuff on my floor. And just being from Trenton does not mean I'm going to be dirty. And I don't want that to just sit there. There are many people in this community that have pride in themselves and pride in their lives, and they can live in public housing as well. And they have that same attitude. And I think most people do. It's the ones that are negative that are casting the shadow over those worthy people that are being overlooked. And because we get wounded by them, I don't want that dispersion cast upon everybody.
Right.
So please, let's point out. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jelani.
The elephant in the room that we don't talk about is like, even this meeting, who shows up? It's the ladies in the community.
Right.
We have a generation of Black men that have been mass incarcerated. They have been pushed to the borders of society. So when we start talking about loitering, when we start talking about all of these things, we dealing with young Black men who are basically have been locked out of this society. And we can say, oh, a kids club. Yeah, we could do a kids club. We could do all of that. But the real issue that we're dealing with is the Black man being locked out of his home, being locked out of his family, being mass incarcerated. So, I mean, we talk about these issues. We can get on Zoom and talk about these issues like, it's an easy fix. But we all know it's not an easy fix. We're talking about generations of that have been destroyed, from heroin to crack cocaine to mass incarceration. So this is what we're talking about. So this issue that we here, I got Keith here, I got Freedom here, our whole group that we have here, Christy, Laneri, the people that we have working at the Housing Authority understand it. We teach it, they understand it, and we move in to uplift and elevate our people. That's what we move in to uplift and elevate our people. So when I put it out there, and I'm not going to sit back and let residents slide. Because like I'm saying, we clean this place up every day. Jokers come right back out here and empty it up. I'm going out there and told them, yo, pick that up. Come on, man. And we need more engagement from Black men in the community like yourself to come around here and get with these young brothers and say, yo, let's clean this up. Let's get this together.